So this week, just open up my little document.
So I had an exciting morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, just got hit from behind on my way to the office here this morning.
Did you get a listing?
You too?
Yeah,
Me too.
yeah. No, but I did get the other driver, the guy that hit me from behind. I got his information, and he's a roofer. So now I got a roofer contact.
So, but you're okay though. That's most important, right?
Yeah, everyone's okay, and it wasn't substantial damage. So there was a school bus that stopped right on Sunrise, right at 108, which is one intersection away from Nob Hill. And for the life of me, I don't understand why they stop on the main road instead of pulling into the development just off the main road and stopping there.
Don't feel bad. I got hit too.
Who's that?
Rick. I got
You got
hit. Too. I just got hit. I just got rear-ended like 5 minutes ago.
Are you serious?
Serious. Dead serious.
It's Black Friday.
Right,
Apparently,
so,
it's. I don't know. I think my Jeep is cursed, but the Jeep, not a scratch on it. The other guy's car was trashed, so
Toast,
I'm thankful. Yeah, I mean, he totaled his car, but there was barely a scratch on the back of my Jeep, so all
right,
good.
So rule number one: everybody drive safely. All right.
Yeah, right. Look out there today. It's crazy out there today.
Well, I don't know, but here the roads were a little bit slick and a little bit damp from just a little bit of drizzle.
Yeah, I don't know. Traffic everywhere.
Fantastic. Well, let's get this show on the road here. I appreciate that PSA, and I'm glad you both are doing well. So I want to talk about elevating your follow-up game. Okay, and as I prepare for these conversations that we have every Friday, I see a lot of commonalities and similarities that are coming into play, and it's almost like I can't completely separate one session from another because they're all interconnected into having value, which I think is one of the things that we don't generally lack in our business. But I think everybody has an opportunity to improve the way we communicate our value, right? And I learn when I do this research for these meetings, it's not like I'm a genius and I know this automatically. It comes from, me thinking outside the box. How can we have better conversations with our clients or even our future clients? I know many of you are familiar with some of the coaches have something they say the 5-5-4, which is to have 5 conversations with people in your sphere or people that you know every day. And I just want to point out those are not 5 calls. The conversation isn't, hey Jeff, how you doing? Oh, I can't talk today. All right, one conversation down. No, that's not it. Okay, these are having conversations. It doesn't need to be about real estate. Hey, how you doing? How's the family? Do you know anyone I can help? Identifying and just humanizing ourselves with our clients. The second bucket is 5 conversations with people that we don't know, which is where people get wigged out. People get a little bit intimidated. They get a little bit scared. Real estate experts, people who are subject matter experts at selling real estate, and communication sales experts are 2 separate, distinct skill sets. Okay. Having the ability to talk to a complete stranger and be able to have command of the conversation and also not to have anxiety about the no's or about rejection. That's a completely different skill set from understanding how real estate trades, understanding the neighborhoods, all the different components that we do. And I think the complexity of our business is probably why you see a lot more teams coming into place, because they have the infrastructure to provide enhanced training in the different skill sets. Okay. And then the one I'm focusing on today is the follow-up conversations. That's the 4 of the 5-5-4. My initial reaction always is, well, 4 just seems so little, but it's a lot more than 0. and 0 is what happens most of the time when we get caught up in the minutia of our daily activities. The follow-up conversation, and I've been guilty of it, what would be an intuitive way to follow up with somebody who maybe you were out showing houses 6 months ago? You give them a call. Anybody want to volunteer? Like, what would that call sound like?
Are you talking about after you show a property to a buyer? Is that what you're saying?
So, I mean, it could be, somebody's hot and heavy. They look at 6 properties, then they kind of back off for a little bit, right? Now it's time to hit the follow-up. Our industry is notoriously bad about that. Ron, would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, for the
I
most part.
mean, most people at best, an inquiry comes in, they jump on it. If they can't make that sale immediately, right? They see a squirrel and they're moving on to the next one. And they're not organized or systematized enough to do the follow-up. So number one is we actually have to do it. It has to be intentional. And I'm going to go through some processes. But if you're making a follow-up call, Ron, what do you expect most of the industry is doing on that follow-up call? I showed you properties 6 months ago. Your database is saying, Ron, you need to call Rob Lazar today. What does that call sound like? Or anybody want to volunteer?
I wouldn't let it go. I wouldn't let it go 6 months, that's for sure. But I would probably jump in there, like, if it's a week past after showing them 6 properties. I don't even let it go that long. I just want to find out what's going on with them and why they're, hesitant to make an offer on anything, or if they saw anything that they liked, to give me some feedback. Do you want to see more properties, or is there something I can change in your criteria? But what can I do to help help your purchasing come along and make an offer on a property? So I want to find out a little bit more about what's going on with them.
Okay,
I
so
think what I would do is I would contact them, especially if it's been that long, and just say, hey, introduce yourself again and say you just want to touch base with them. And then kind of ask them about what they thought about the properties you had shown them. If there was, ask them what of the properties you showed them, what did they like, not like,
Maybe I'm
start
jumping
trying
the
to
gun.
maybe fine tune what they're looking for a little bit.
So I'd actually take a different stance. Anytime I call somebody, it's always value based. It's always what can I share with them. So I would take the stance of, if we looked at places 6 months ago, look to see what's closed and at what price.
So Jeremy, I just muted you because there was a lot of background noise. So if you can unmute yourself.
So I would look at the properties that we looked at. If we made any offers on any of them, look at the prices that they sold for and kind of reset their expectations of where they need to be, and the type of offers that they need to submit, and then kind of reset and reassess with them if they're still actively looking, if they still want to work together, and go from there. But always lead with some value to them, instead of just checking in.
All right, so Jeremy comes from some financial sales background, so he's a little bit more sophisticated than even I was when I was left to my own intuition, because I would have said, the same thing that Jeff said, hey, I'm just following up, or I'm just checking in. And I want to strike a nerve where if you buy into what I'm sharing with you, you will never say that again. Okay, you will never say it again. Angie, you have a comment?
Yeah, I think I would just use a softer approach. I would try to reconnect with the reason they were making a move. Like, is the lease expiring? Are you guys still thinking about making a move? Usually when people disconnect, it's because they're just in the information gathering stage. So I think that the examples other people gave is when someone's like ready to transact, it's easier to like follow up with them in that sense. But if you just say, hey, how's the job? Did you take the new job? Or hey, I know you were getting divorced. Was that settled? Are you still thinking about making a move? Like, depending on what their reason was to make the move, I just try to reconnect to that reason if I know it.
So Angie, one of the things that you kind of hinted towards is, I think a lot of times when we engage with a buyer, or could even be a seller, sometimes I think it's more buyers. Sometimes they're in the buying phase, right? They're ready to go now. They just need somebody to provide them with the clear path, to have the confidence, show them the strategies to get it accomplished. But wouldn't you agree that oftentimes we come across people who are just in the research phase, like saying, hey, you know what, I don't even have 2 nickels to rub together. My wife and I are thinking about buying a house. What would that look like? And then maybe that's going to be the inspiration for them to set up a plan to save some money and to be able to buy in 3, 6, 9, 18 months, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes we get so excited about the process that we skip steps and we don't realize that maybe they're not in the buy now process, and that can frustrate us.
Yes,
But
I think it's better to come to the conversation with not commission breath, like how am I going to benefit from it, but how are they going to benefit from me reconnecting? You know, so I do like the value-based approach that the other person was mentioning, bringing back information. So I do think people are burnt out too. There are people who lost a lot of offers, weren't able to get their offer accepted. Now you can revisit them and say, I think the reason we may not make the phone calls because we're afraid that they transacted with someone else. So I guess we got to get over that fear. It's possible, yeah, they hired someone else, but you know, you do have to reconnect with people and make some difficult phone calls.
now, have you ever met with a realtor.com lead or a Zillow lead?
Have I? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I asked the question that way just snarkily because they're all people, right?
Yeah.
That's just the method in which they connected with us, right? But we often dehumanize them by saying I have to follow up with my Zillow leads. And I know that that's the method at which we obtain them, but in reality, they're people.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think I'm going to skip a couple of steps in my handout or my attachment. And I hope you guys go to the attachment in the email because, you know, it's generally completed on the morning of, because I'll have a shadow sheet, then I'll drop it all in the morning of. My 4th bullet point down is, first, you must emotionally find a way to care about your future clients and share with them the way to accomplish this. Accomplish it. Oh, I gotta correct the wording, but how to accomplish what they're looking to accomplish, right? And we need to be vulnerable and care about people we haven't even met, which, you know, is an interesting concept. But I would rather say, let's go out there, let's actually care about the people we're talking to and let them prove that they're not worthy of being cared about later on, give them the benefit of the doubt, because without that, they're not going to get the best of us, right? So, you know, if we don't care about our customers, we have commission breath, it makes the process so much harder. Okay. And it's almost insurmountable when that happens. And this is through the lens of our follow-up. We have to have them feel the love and caring about the process and helping them. Otherwise, you can't get into the link. Okay. In the attachment, if you try to open it, it's not available.
I think it's you have to give permission. Like anyone who has the link can see the document.
Yeah, it says you'll email it to us or something to that effect.
All right, let me try to fix that here. Let's try it now. Anybody check to see if that's working?
It's
So-
working.
Yeah, I got it.
Sorry about that, team. So we can't be 100% effective unless we put ourselves in the position of caring about somebody that we haven't met, which is a foreign concept. But if you trust me, give it a shot. It will work more times than not. And that's the foundation at which you build the relationship. Okay. Our job is to make the unknowns known through scripting and role playing. To make the unknowns known through scripting and role playing. That's a lot of things that it could mean, but the unknowns are almost infinite. And what we need to do is let them know how the process works. And if we have to think about it when we're saying it, do you think people are going to have that level of confidence in our competence? Or do you think that they're going to be like, well, he's fumbling with the words, she's not clear, she's doing a lot of ums and ahs. You know, there's a lot of competition out there. You know, I might entertain other opportunities. Okay. We build trust through clear communication to make the complex transactions simple for the customer to understand and to execute. Does somebody want to work with somebody who's like all over the place and, oh my God, there's no inventory, it's going to be really, no, they want you to say, look, if you have a goal, let's sit down and figure out if we can solve for that goal. And let me show you the pathway to getting it completed. Right. And if I don't have the confidence that if I'm like, well, there's 40 offers, there's this, there's that, you know, people are going to politely, and it might even be subconsciously, avoid you. Right. If you ever have that person that ghosts you, it might be because not who they are, but how we presented ourselves. Okay. Like we want to be a magnet because of the transparency and the way that we make the complicated simple. You must not only know what you will say, you must understand it, and you must be able to teach it to your clients. And I'm going to call that the third level. Okay. If you're a home buyer, you should understand the process, right? You don't necessarily need to know what to say. If you understand the process, you can get it done. But you know, we couldn't expect homeowners to teach it to others. Like they can't teach it to their friends because they just went through it once. Okay, learning a script is like an empty suit. Okay, unless you understand what it means to the highest level. That's level 2. Level 3 is being able to teach it to somebody else. Really gives you next level skill set. Okay. I was paying some attention, watching some of the things that one of our team leaders, Niran and Bill, are doing. And, you know, I think that a lot of what I'm talking about probably intersects with what you're going through as a team with the role playing. I don't know if you're someplace where you can chime in, Niran, but are you seeing like similarities in this?
Yeah, of course. We were talking briefly on the phone last night, so, you know, kind of what you and I agreed together just naturally, we reached a conclusion of you have to genuinely be willing to help someone from like your internal core and integrity. Like that's where it has to come from, because to Rob's point about it's our jobs to like uncover the unknown. We're making the unknown known, which is so true. We're educators. We're taking a situation that's highly complex with some of these sellers, and we're paving the path for them. A lot of these sellers, if we think there's unknowns that we're trying to figure out about their urgency and motivation, we're the ones who are experienced in this industry. So there's even more unknowns on the seller's part. And it's our jobs to educate them and guide them properly. And if you're not coming from a place of truly trying to help someone, then when it comes to uncovering their true motivation or urgency or whatever their pain is for the motivation behind moving or creating this transition or whatever it is, if you're not coming from a place of truly wanting to help them, the questions you're going to ask will only be surface level or slightly beyond surface level at best. And you're going to plateau at around like 65%. Whereas the people who are genuinely trying to help someone, they'll ask deeper questions that will uncover the truth of why someone's trying to sell. If you ask someone why they're trying to sell their home and their answer is, oh, you know, we're just downsizing, that's the first answer. But 9 times out of 10, it's not the real answer. There's always something else. So when you get to the second or third layer, that's when you get the true urgency, the true motivation, the true emotional factors that are causing the transition. And if you don't genuinely want to help someone, you're not going to ask questions that are even going to get to that situation. Okay, downsizing, like, you know, the house is a little bit large for you. I totally understand. How does that make you feel? Maybe it's a situation where they can't afford it anymore. It's not just downsizing. So now you've asked something a little bit more on a deeper level, and they've told you, oh, well, you know, we can barely even afford this. So it's not just downsizing. Now it's a whole different situation. But if I didn't genuinely care, I wouldn't have asked that question. That would have opened up that door.
Right. And now Nir, and I'm gonna tie in a similarity from when we had Angie Verstock speak on one of our meetings. She said asking deep level questions to build trust. And I put this part, make deposits into the emotional bank account, right? Because people aren't
like
going to
that.
open up to you unless they trust you, right?
Right.
If you go and ask a complete stranger for a favor and you haven't built a relationship, you're probably not going to be successful because you haven't given value first. So this is actually what an IT, or excuse me, an AI program. We just had it record our conversation before one of our meetings. And she said by the end of the time you go deep with your questions and you get to number 7, sometimes you don't even need to get to 7 because they've already basically spilled their guts and shared with you what's really important to them. There's a connection. Now they've opened up at a deeper level, well beyond that of a salesperson. Think about that, right? So she has been able to ask deeper level questions, and I'm just going to grossly overstate kind of how it goes. So, what are you looking for in your first home? People might say a 3-bedroom, 2-bath on a 1/4 acre of land, right? And then Angie would go, well, that's not what I'm asking about. So why are you looking to buy this house? Well, because we're in a 2-bedroom and we have 3 kids that want to have their own room. Okay. And what else is important to you? Well, we're not in the best school. You go down these deeper levels, right? And you build on that connection. This is not my stuff. This is from, a really talented, seasoned agent. She says, I'm no longer a salesperson. I'm not just their consultant. I also become their friend. At that level, you get to, and that's the level you get to when you go deep with 5, 6s, and 7s. Okay. So in a mere conversation, and for those of you newer to the business, you might say, I can't envision that. But it's not possible until you experience it and you do it, right? Nobody thought, I don't know, maybe it's 50 years ago that you could have a telephone without a wire on it, right? Because that's how everything communicated. Like, how does it go through thin air? But when you have these conversations, you'll see that it's as certain as gravity and telecommunications. It's an absolute certainty. And now that's the way you don't lose a client. They don't want to go through another agent. Okay. They don't want to, basically go through the whole process of sharing it. But most importantly, you've connected with them at a higher level and they see the value. Okay.
So if I can just chime in, so to piggyback off of that, what I'm saying, understand the context of what I'm saying. I'm not advising any of you to just go around throwing away business. Rob, I swear that's not what I'm preaching right now. But I will say, like, 10 to 15% of the conversations that I have with people do end up in some sort of fashion where it's me saying, like, hey, you know what? It probably doesn't work out for, like, me to just have your business. It's probably not the best scenario for me to just have your business and to force this scenario. I'm going to help you and I'm going to guide you, but I guide them based on things that aren't in my best and personal interest. And me telling them the truth about a situation and saying, like, hey, this probably, maybe listing your house or maybe, accepting our direct off-market offer isn't the best scenario. Maybe you should take it to a realtor. Maybe you should, dig a little bit deeper on this and consult an attorney or consult a financial advisor. Like, maybe that's the step. And 9 times out of 10, with those 10 to 15% of conversations, 9 times out of 10, I'm getting a call back where it's like, hey, we did what you said, or we explored what you said. And, even though a realtor told us we could get more, we still want to accept your cash offer because we just trust you and like the way that you operated. Or, we did speak with our counsel, and now we are ready to make a decision, and we just feel good with, like, you being the person that's listing our home. So you are building trust in that, and the phone calls do come back because you're establishing that trust. You're not just seeking business, you're building a foundation of like, I'm gonna tell you the truth of what you should do outside of any personal interest that I have. And that's like the true core of what the seat that we sit in is.
Right, and Naren, I was listening to some of the recordings on the airplane, and one of the things I loved is, you know, when you were setting up in the role play, the follow-up, where you're like, hey, you know, Naren, I want to make sure that your spouse will be there with you, and I want to make sure I've given you all the information so that you can make a decision, and I'm completely comfortable with a no. I just want to make sure that you're prepared to make a decision, you have all the information. If you want to just maybe touch for 30 seconds, 60 seconds on the mindset behind that, because I really thought that that was something that changed my mind. Because before, like when you say go for the no, I was thinking if you go for a bunch of no's, you're eventually going to get a yes. But I came away with a different meaning when I heard the context of that role play.
Right. So there's two different things, right? Going for no is something that's a strategy that's applied a little bit more in the arena when you feel some sort of like non-committed language. If somebody's like, well, you know, you're like, okay, you need to downsize. Are you ready to list your house or ready to make this transition? And their answer is sure. Sure sounds like a positive response, but it's really not. It should either be a hell yes or a hell no. So when you hear that non-committal language, going for no is like, well, you know, sometimes, Mr. Seller, when people tell me, sure, they're ready to sell their house, that's kind of just the polite way of really saying they're not ready yet. It seems like you might not be ready. Is that the case? And you're doing one of two things there. One, you're either saving your time, or two, you're just affirming that yes even more, because they're gonna say, yeah, maybe I'm not ready. And now you're saving your time and you can follow up with them and you're still maintaining a solid, trusting relationship. Or two, you're pushing them towards a no. And if they're really ready to sell, they're gonna be like, well, no, I'm ready to do this. And that's just getting them back into your arena towards a yes a little bit more. But then there's the other side of it when you're actually talking to someone and you're saying, you know, all I can really ask at the end of this phone call, once we give you our offer or tell you what our commission is, related to like, you know, listing a property, you know, all I can ask from you is that you have all the information in front of you that you need to make a proper yes or no decision. And if the answer is no, that's totally fine. Don't worry, you won't hurt my feelings. It's totally okay. And that part of using that concept of no, again, you're just gaining trust and you're letting them know, like, it's, don't feel uncomfortable, because a lot of people will tell you yeses just because they feel uncomfortable about saying something that they think is going to hurt your feelings. So you're setting that expectation of like, you're not going to hurt my feelings. So if it's going to be a no, just say no, rather than giving me any sort of wishy-washy language that's this gray area where I believe something that's not the case. Don't hurt anyone's feelings, because that doesn't get us, you're not gonna hurt anyone's feelings, because that doesn't get us anywhere.
Right.
So it's kind of twofold.
And you know, you kind of you said it eloquently that it's not about, you know, going through and saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and the more no's I get, the closer I am to a yes, which was my wisdom before I was listening to your, you know, I'm going to call them higher level conversations about getting to a no, which is at least knowing if it's a real prospect, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing that. And, you know, like my mindset was no used to be 100 no's mean you get 3 yeses, but this was a deeper process of, you know, I really don't want to put somebody in a position where they're doing something that's not in their best interest. I want them to think about it. And if they do something that's not in their best interest, they might have second thoughts and cancel anyway, which you don't get paid. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to do what Niren's teaching his team to do, right? Because the worst case scenario is, you know, they feel bad, they say yes, and then they cancel after you spend, you know, 12 hours trying to put it all together. They say, yeah, we changed our mind, right? And I believe a lot of those changed their minds could have been better eliminated early on if you connected at a deeper level. So thank you for educating me on that, Niran.
You know, of course, there are like minute psychological concepts to every single word and every single way we present those situations. But all those psychological concepts aside, what we're really getting down to is just like full transparency, which builds trust and saves time. So really, that's all it is. I want to save their time. I want to save our time. I want it to be transparent. I want it to be trust. Because if you need time, that's fine. I'll follow up with you in 2 months, but we're going to have a great relationship. And then, of course, the psychological things that are happening are secondary to all that.
Now, Niran, just share with the group, how many people on your team, including yourself and Bill, make calls on a daily basis?
Bill's not really making calls anymore. I make calls every single day, anywhere from like 10 to 30. I try to hit around 35 calls a day, but it's me, Robbie, Juan makes calls. Alexis, new gal who joined the team, she makes calls. Everybody's making calls
So
every single day.
6 or 7 people, and
Yeah,
it's
7 people.
basically it's a high priority for the team, and I just wanted to share that with you. It's something that they talk about every day. They role play in the morning. This afternoon, you're going to have, what do you call the session at 1 o'clock?
Visionary vaults.
Visionary vault, and then in the morning you have is it a morning huddle?
Yeah, it's a morning huddle. It's about 15 minutes to recap everyone's KPIs from the day before. You go over everyone's numbers of, you know, how many calls they made, any offers out, things like that. And then the remaining 30, 45 minutes is is role play with the team. And we'll just, you know, turn our screens off and we'll role play and pick 2 people. One's the seller, one's the buyer. And then the visionary vaults at 1 p.m. every single Friday. Those are more of like a free form, philosophical meeting. And the concept behind that is affirming that genuinity, affirming the core values of who we are, of genuinely trying to help people. But also, you can only help someone so much as you help yourself, right? We put heavy emphasis on culture and focus on who you are outside of the office to make you a better person in the office.
So their structure, there's a team that's completely committed to making connections, conversations, and doing them at a higher level instead of just running through calls. You know, I'm going to pivot to a couple of new things I want to cover here.
Sure.
Number one is I was saying these things when I was coaching, helping people, when I was in sales. I'm calling to follow up or I'm checking in. I now believe that those are horrible. This is my personal opinion, horrible ways to start a conversation. And, you know, maybe we can pivot and say, you know, has anyone taken the time to, you know, review with you a strategy? Has anyone reviewed with you the trends in Elizabeth, New Jersey for first-time home buyers? There you're giving them more specific, relevant information to help them make an educated decision. You know, if you like the check-in or follow-up, you know, that's fine. I used to do it, but I really think that it's not elevating us to the stature that we want to be. You know, educate people on, you know, trends. Maybe the trends are, you know, now, you know, home sellers are more likely to give you more leeway in buyer home inspections, whereas before it's information only. Now, maybe you can expand upon that. Now, maybe you can even get a property that's been on the market for 60 days to give you a sales concession to help you with your closing costs. Okay, maybe now you don't have to do an appraisal gap waiver, or maybe now if you do an appraisal gap waiver, you could be like, who was I talking to? I was talking to you know, somebody not on the call, but they said that they just sold somebody a property in Broward County. It was a condo. It was on the market for $650. They took it off the market a year and a half ago. They put it back on at $625. They dropped it down to $550, and he negotiated a $450 contract on a condo in Florida. This almost seems unheard of, but that was my conversation with somebody yesterday. So I mean, that's relevant information that we should be talking to people about. Maybe it's not anywhere near that magnitude in our local market, but maybe now you can actually pay less than the asking price on a property that's on the market. You know, the consumers might still be avoiding the marketplace because they're thinking they're gonna have to pay, you know, 20, 30, 50,000 above ask price, 100,000 above ask price, where they may not have to. In New Jersey, there are some markets where people are still paying six figures over, and I'm sure it's in Florida too, over the asking price, but we owe it to educate our buyers in those specific markets what's going on. You know, in talking to somebody about buying, you know, maybe they've never been, nobody shared with them, instead of negotiating price, maybe you can give a post occupancy agreement instead of, you know, paying more in price. You know, so what that means to you is, you know, I'll role play with you, Jeff Bretzer. What that means to you, Jeff, is when you buy a house, you know, if you close on a house on July 2nd, your first mortgage payment isn't normally due until September. As an inducement to get a seller to sell and make it easier for them to transition, we might say you sell your house on, you know, July 2nd, and we let you stay in the house without any additional fee till the end of July. And then we move in August 1st, and still moving in August 1st, our first payment to the lender is not until September 1st. I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that option instead of maybe, you know, paying 15,000 more to win the bid. You know, some sellers might find that to be more attractive to have the ability to stay in the house, even if it meant $10,000 or $15,000 less. I see, Ron, you're shaking your head. Not all of them, but there's a segment that flexibility is true value. And if we can educate our potential buyers on all of these things, you know, post sale occupancy, most buyers probably don't know what that means, right? And then I'm calling on all the lenders in the group to educate them on when your first mortgage payment becomes due. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Average days on market. You know, homes are sitting on the market a little bit longer, which means that you might have some more choices when we go out on Saturday. You know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do any property that you're interested in. I'm going to do a CMA or a buyer's analysis on it, right? Which is going to tell you what the last three homes sold for, you know, how much they sold as a discount or premium to the asking price. I think it's valuable to buyers. I think a lot of times we do that behind the scenes, or we know that in our head, but we don't communicate it. Let's have these conversations when we're formally checking in with people. Now we're educating them. Recent industry changes providing you more opportunities, aka the NAR settlement, right? You know, there's some new changes. Trends that sellers are looking for in today's marketplace, and it's not all about price, right? That's the post sale occupancy. Strategies to find off market and pre-market properties. All right. If you're working with a $700,000 buyer and now you're going to ask them to go into contract and you just met with them, I think we need to have a compelling reason why somebody wants to commit to us in writing for a period of time, even if it may be cancelable in, you know, 3 days, or there might be provisions for them to get out. But, you know, if you're a complete agent, maybe you're going to say, hey, you know, here's what I do for my clients. We're going to find 3 properties that close that would have been good for you. We're going to see what's on the market. You know, if there's homes on the market, we'll get thumbs up, down, what you like, what you don't like. And then if nothing's on the market, we'll actually, you know, door knock an area for you if that's something that you're willing to do. Or we'll do a specific mailer to that area for you. Whatever you're willing to do, we need to be able to communicate that in our value proposition up front. And it ought to be second nature so that we can communicate that in our conversations with the people that haven't yet conducted business and haven't conducted business or haven't made the decision to conduct business with us. Our job is not just selling real estate, it's making the complex simple for consumers. I'm going to talk now about a thing called future casting. which is very relevant in light of all the changes going on. And future casting is a strategic planning process that has you thinking about potential scenarios and trends to anticipate and prepare for what might affect business in the future. That's a long sentence, but I think it's a lot about what we were doing, but we didn't have a definition for it. We're trying to anticipate what the future is going to look like and find how we're going to serve our clients. It's used to make informed decisions in the present by considering how different factors might evolve over time. Here's one of the things that I'm going to go deep in on is conversion partners. Okay, before the selection of strategic partners that help make the process come together more seamlessly, more likely to close, less stress, simplifying, demystifying the process. If you ever get a weak link in that chain, it devalues the transaction value for everybody. For example, if you get a weak lender, right, that they got online that maybe even exaggerated what they could do, and then they stop responding, and the seller doesn't know if they're going to close on time or they're going to have to collect keep the deposit. The buyer is like, you know, what's happening, Jeff? The lender stopped getting back to me. We're closing is next Thursday. Like, where is that stress level in that scenario? Anybody? You ever have a client that's closing, you know, in 9 days and they don't have all their conditions clear, and then the lender's not responding? Right. It's not good, right? And I'm going to say to you, Ron, that devalues the experience that they have and they talk about even working with you, even though you had nothing to do with it, right? You want to unmute yourself there, Ron? I just want to ask you a couple questions.
Yeah,
So have you ever had a client pick a lender online that didn't go well?
absolutely. Yeah.
Now, is that your fault?
No, but you always get blamed for it for some reason.
So Ron, how about this? How about I say it's partially our fault, and you'll be like, "Whoa, Rob, stop! I'm going to log
No,
off this thing
No,
right
you're
now."
right.
But I'm going to tell you why it's partially our fault, because we need to have trusted partners that are going to add value. And now in my future casting, we need to deliver that value earlier on in the process. Okay. And I actually was talking to somebody I know in the business who shared with me something that one of their peers does. They said that one of their peers, and they don't have an interest in the mortgage business, but what they do is they require their lending partners, and they call them conversion partners, not lending partners. Okay. They want them to give 4 pieces of information to them, not just a pre-approval. So they want to know what the max and lenders, I want you to pay attention to this, and agents, you should probably write this down. It is on here, but if you write it down, it will reinforce. What's the max qualification that the buyer can afford? Okay, can they afford 700 or 900? What's the payment associated with that qualification? Okay, because I never really, even as a lender, when I did that years ago, I never told them what the payment was, but I think it would be good for our real estate partner and our mortgage partner to know those details. Number 3, what's the comfortable payment for them, or the comfortable qualified amount? And usually that revolves around what monthly payment they're comfortable with, and that equates to a purchase, a dollar amount that they can buy. So we're up to 3. And then they said that they wanted them to do a wealth forecast. And now I've just created this acronym called the COW, which is the cost of waiting. Okay. Has anybody gone over the COW with you? What's the COW? It's the cost of deferring your buying or cost of waiting. Okay. And, we can use the rent power. Like, what is the fact that you're continuing to rent do? What's the cost of waiting over a 2-year period or over a 3-year period, right? Because rent's typically going up. Okay. Home values over time always trend upwards. So you're going to get that appreciation. I think we need to break it down so the consumer understands the benefit and the cost and exposure of waiting. Okay. So lenders going to be more work, but I think it's going to be a heck of a lot better. My colleagues that I was masterminding with about this, they claim that they have a 50 to 70% stick rate between the two of them of the customers working with the lender when they do all this work up front. Okay. And, traditionally, a lender would say that Mary Jane can qualify for 900, but they don't tell you that Mary Jane's only really comfortable with a payment of 4,200, which equates to 750. But, I'm going to suggest that you demand that of your lenders so that you can better serve your clients. And now you have a conversion partner, okay, which means when we sell them houses, there's going to be a higher correlation to the lenders getting that business because they delivered more value up front. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
This is Caesar. Actually, those are all good, valid points. As a lender myself, I actually even take it a step further, and I have the agent send me over the addresses that they're thinking on submitting offers on. Especially down here in South Florida, the biggest thing is taxes and insurance. So let's say we do have a client that's qualified for about 750, 800,000. They can be on the borderline of one county to another, and taxes can be significantly different, anywhere from 10 to 15,000. Especially insurance with the roofs and opening protection down here. So that's one thing I do require my agents when I practice my lending side. And seeing it here, I've actually had 3 clients that came from different states, and I've been working with out-of-state lenders, and it has been difficult, but I've been able to kind of guide them and show them how we do things down here in South Florida, and it's been helping me convert these clients.
So Caesar and Frank, you work in the Florida market. A non-warrantable condo. How about educating somebody early on before they fall in love with the place and they find out that they can or can't do the financing that somebody talked to them about? Because if the person doing that loan consulting is in Des Moines, Iowa, they don't really have that much experience about, the relevant issues in Southeast Florida or in Florida completely, right?
Exactly.
One of our title partners, Seth Kimball was just telling me yesterday that, he helped a client buying a property secure an escrow for a future assessment that wasn't yet levied. Because I think that's going to be a huge thing in South Florida. Okay, they put money aside for an event that hadn't yet occurred, but it's kind of, right now it's the seller's problem. If there's an assessment, if they sell the property and 2 days later, the board announces a $10,000 assessment per unit, that buyer is probably not going to be thrilled, right? So that's part of the complete conversion partnerships, where we're taking care of our client, we're educating them in advance of what might happen. So I don't know, Caesar, thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to just, lean into Frank, because I know some of our team down in Florida, have used Frank to fix the messes that other lenders have done. And I just want to get your thoughts on, if you're welcoming having more in-depth conversations early on to create that bond and be part of that strategic partnership, conversion partnership. Maybe take a moment there, Frankie.
So Caesar, all great points, and Rob, those are exactly what we do as a lender. We do touch on all of those. We do touch on the max qualification, and that's fine. But they don't want to, even though they're qualified to spend $1 million, they don't want to spend $8,000-9,000 a month. So we do ask about that, and that was a great point by Caesar. But I have a lot of agents call me and just send me the address and I'll run the numbers specific to that property. And if the customer is comfortable with those payments, then they're going to make the offers. But no, talking about the non-marketable condos and knowing and educating. The other difference too is knowing the difference between a condo, a co-op, and a townhouse. So a lot of there is a big difference. And I personally, what I try to do up front is if I know somebody's under contract on a condo, immediately I'm going to ask for the certificate of insurance and the master policy, the budget, and if they have a condo questionnaire, that's fine, because those things will tell me right away if it's warrantable or non-warrantable. So I've seen a lot of loan officers, and I've had, like you said, I had to clean up a couple messes because people came to me that were pre-approved under contract and they were not approved because the condo wasn't approved. So we had to flip it to a non-warrantable investor. So those things up front are super important to do.
Yeah, you have full review, you have, that's another thing too. Some of these condos, their budget and they don't have any
Yeah.
reserves. Cost you more money to put down as a down payment.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing too was another thing we try to grab too are the meeting minutes, because like you said, Rob, these special assessments are coming up. So again, like you said, prior to the sale, it's the seller's problem, but post sale, it becomes the buyer's problem. So if you could kind of get all that information up front and the condo questionnaire, it's super helpful.
And Frank, and I'm guessing that, I mean, this is something that I've just accumulated here from my preparation for today, but how about giving everybody a wealth forecast on buying a house? Right? And that can be incorporated into the rent power analysis that Fred and I are working on, which is basically a spreadsheet that has some complex calculations based upon some simple assumptions.
Right.
And I think that would be, helpful, because most people are not, I'm looking at a police officer and a teacher, they don't know the compound effect of appreciation on a home and how amortization and tax benefits can work in their favor. And it's not a dig on them, but I don't know about teaching and law enforcement, right?
Exactly.
It's not what I do. But I'm thinking like we need to step up the game, especially if we're going to be getting, buyer agency agreements executed for a specified period of time. And I've been having a lot of conversations with people, so I apologize for sharing this in this way. But I was talking to somebody yesterday who was on the fence of coming on board here. We're talking about the buyer agency agreement, and his team's north of $20 million in business. He's like, Rob, we're excited to have a retainer collected so that people have money up front that they won't leave. They're kind of stuck with us. And I said, look, I think maybe there's a different way. I'm not opposed to a retainer, but I'm saying if you drive all this value up front, okay, you won't need the retainer, right? Because they're going to say, get away from me. I'm not going to work with you because I've built this relationship with the team that's going to get the process completed. Okay. But it's all about transparency. And, I don't think if you're putting to collect $1,000, $2,000, is that ultimately going to stop somebody from switching? Especially not if they're not finding your value to be superior to others because you built that connection and relationship. So those are just a few thoughts that I have in terms of upping our game, elevating our follow-up game. And the last piece I'm going to talk about is, we all have, in our phone, in our network, virtually everybody that's on Zillow probably is connected on Facebook or is in somebody's phone as a contact, probably 20 realtors or more. If we educate them, like, make the home buying process simple, do things like this. When you have the conversation with them, it's the bottom of the attachment. And this is not one that I endorse, but it is something I copied off of online, which says, hey, here's how the process works. Let me share this with you early on. so that if there are any questions, concerns, here's the roadmap to success, right? It's all attached there. You find ways to scale the communication. You know, Frank and I did a home buyers event with the Michael Gopi team, and I don't know, there's like 8 or 10 people there, and you're just reading the emotion. I think everybody, left feeling like they were armed with solutions, not, terrified of the process, which is the mission. I'd like to see a process for doing that so that it's not random. We can educate and help more people. We have a repeatable message. We can demystify the process because we're local area experts. People in New Jersey are dealing with, a different, we have different procedures, different laws, even different agency than in Florida. And in Florida, in different parts of Florida, there are different concerns. That's why we need local experts that can communicate that value proposition to clients and potential and prospective clients to earn the business, right? Earn their trust, earn the business, get them to, the signature on the buyer's agency agreement, in my opinion, would be even more symbolic than enforceable, because I don't foresee, Remax Select Group going after people and suing a ton of people. I mean, I know if people are blatantly violating things, that we might do that on a case by case basis to support you. But I think it's symbolic. It's an excuse to have the conversation to build the value. And if you really built the value, even if their third cousin's first nephew is got licensed yesterday, there is no way that they're going to consider doing that, right? Because they know the value that we drive to the process. So anyway, the another way the NAR settlement has forced us to future cast and deliver more value to our conversations, and to elevate our follow-up game by knowing exactly what we're going to say, thinking differently about what that conversation looks like. And, there would be no Zillow if everybody kept in touch with the people they knew. Okay, we wouldn't have to be paying for any leads. Okay, and, there probably is a software program out there that does this, but I know First was doing that for a little bit, would tell you who purchased that's already in your database. And I don't know if anybody from Glenn Baker's team is on, but there's a predictive program that goes through your database and tells you who's likely to sell, and then it tells you who did sell that you didn't capture, which is both painful and also gives you an idea of what the opportunity is for you to, get your arms around. And I think, Glenn's database, I want to say it was the first quarter, had $42 million worth of listings in it that weren't with the Baker team, even though they had a phenomenal first quarter. This identified opportunities for them to elevate their game and figure out how they can, have those conversations where, people are going to want to come find them to transact the business. So, any questions, comments? Anybody?
Rob,
Yeah.
I got 2 comments I'd like to make, please.
Go ahead.
So to get back from the beginning of the call where you were talking about reaching out to somebody that you haven't seen in a long time, I find this to be a great icebreaker, whether it's a week or 6 months. So I know Bobby Durso was on the call, so I'm going to use him. I'd give him a call and I'd say, hey, Bobby, this is Bobby Golden. How you doing? I came across your name on my phone and it made me think about you. I'm calling you because of this property I showed you 6 months ago. So when you tell somebody that you're thinking of them, that is a great icebreaker, and it kind of diffuses a situation, puts people at ease. The other thing that I wanted to point out is I like the cow discussion before, cost of waiting. But you also have to know your audience. If someone were to give me like a cost analysis, a numbers analysis, maybe that really doesn't strike a chord with me because I'm not a numbers person. But if you say to me, well, you know, golf season is coming up, the country club's down the street, and you want to get there before golf season, or whether it be skiing, schools, you want to make sure your son gets in to school in time, or whatever the case may be. There could be emotional issues that you want to focus on and express the cost of waiting, because if they wait, your kid can't get
Not
in.
here yet. Hi, baby.
And
Hi.
gotta know.
Hi, Mom.
Bobby, you gotta unmute yourself. I had some background noise, sorry.
That's right. I'm just pointing out that you got to know your audience. If people are analytical, then you take the analytical approach. But if you know that your customer is more of an emotional buyer, the cost of waiting could have a lot to do with an emotional purchase, whether it be school, sports activities, family. You know, you just got to know your audience.
Yeah, and it starts from authenticity, sincerity, caring, right? Like I think people will sense if you're just, if you're having a slow day, Bobby, and you're calling to make a commission, don't you see? And if you talk to people that you showed and say, hey, I was thinking about you, you're still interested, this one might have been a good opportunity.
And I'm beating a dead horse, but the minute you tell somebody, hey, I was thinking of you, and it's how you say it. But if I say, hey, Rob, I was thinking of you today for whatever reason, that puts you at a whole different level and starts the conversation off great.
Yeah, instead of I'm just checking in, or hey, whatever the other 80s sales techniques are being used. Did you have something, Mark? Okay. So
I got something. I don't want to take up too much more time, but I did shift over to our morning huddle for a second, but there was something that was said on there that was pretty astute that I'd like to share. One of the new VAs that we're bringing on is a Jamaican guy, and he's got some, enlightened philosophical things that he says every now and again. But one of the comments that he made was, and it couldn't be more true, we are not, there's a misconception in the sales industry, particularly ours, about urgency. And I'm sure we've all heard the term creating urgency, creating urgency, creating urgency. But when it really boils down to it, and this is why we do the role play we do, and this is why we're shifting our approach to a more genuine position, that whole term creating urgency is just, it's outdated and it's wrong. We're not trying to create urgency, because that creates a forceful situation. We're trying to identify urgency and if it actually exists at this moment. And as we're going through the shift that we're going through with our approach, and we are trying to change our scripts and change it from coming from an integral place within every single one of our team members, just some suggestions for all of you guys as you go out there to try and identify urgency without creating it or forcing it. The things that we focus on are, yes, of course, roadblocks and objections. How do you overcome those things? So instead of becoming a master at creating urgency, we focus on like 4 or 5 things of being a master of. So let's be a master of the roadblocks and objections that we are thrown at us. Not creating urgency, but if somebody throws something at us, let's make sure we're competent in how we handle it. Let's become masters at identifying motivation. Let's become masters at setting expectations for the end of this call to set us up for the beginning of the next call. And let's become masters at building rapport, which really boils down to listening and truly understanding a situation. And if you become a master at those things, the urgency either exists or it doesn't, but you're truly guiding people in the right direction without forcing anything. And that's kind of just what I wanted to leave everyone with, because it resonated with me on our other meeting.
well, I appreciate everybody sharing. I hope that this gave you some excitement, and I hope it gave you some urgency to reach out to some of your clients that have slipped away from you, have some meaningful follow-up conversations. Have the courage to have conversations with people that you haven't spoken to or met yet, and to have conversations with people that are in your sphere that deserve to hear from you on a regular basis. So I hope that it accomplished that, and everybody drive safe, all right?
I got a quick question, Rob.
Go ahead.
And this came about on Ron's meeting yesterday on a buyer broker agreement. If we negotiate a compensation with a buyer, say for 2.5%, 3%, and we end up showing them a property and they decide on a property where the owner is offering, say, 2%, what happens to that gap?
The buyer's supposed to pay it.
Okay. Okay.
So, but I'm gonna say that I think what you'd want to do is you'd want to negotiate that in your purchase contract to increase that to cover the amount, and then if they can't, then to negotiate, then to look to your buyer to pay it.
So in the beginning, should you have some kind of a remark on the buyer broker agreement that if there is a gap, that instead of paying the 3% they offered, that they cover the gap, whether it be a 0.5 point or a point or whatever?
Well, the way I would role play that, Jeff, would be, hey, in this market, there are some, I would say that in, wherever you're out in West Palm Beach, the most sellers are paying 2% or 3%. If we happen to come across one that's paying 2%, we will try to negotiate the seller to pay 3%, or if they don't, then you would be responsible for that extra 1% for my services, and have that clear communication. And, I don't think it should be a surprise to them. And I don't think that they should not hear it from you in advance, because we can anticipate those issues. And even if you got paid, Jeff, and they didn't anticipate it, it's probably going to really negatively impact your referral business.
Yeah.
Right. Which is what we live for. We live for the repeat and referral business.
Yeah. So we definitely don't want to PO somebody at closing or something.
Right. And Jeff, I don't think we should be, I don't think we should be uncomfortable having that conversation, because, doctors get paid, lawyers get paid, accountants get paid. We just have our compensation structure. We need to talk about that, because, cloudiness and how we get paid can ruin a perfect relationship.
And then one other thing that came up yesterday too was someone had mentioned that they thought this decision or the implementation was going to be delayed until possibly November. Have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't heard anything about it. And if it is delayed until November, I want to be implementing it as soon as humanly possible. I want to be ahead of the curve. Right. Yeah. And if they say, and if somebody were to come to me, Jeff, and say, hey, I heard that I don't need to sign these agreements until November, right? Or until, let's say we're ready to go now, and they say, I heard I don't have to do that until July. I'm like, yeah, the requirement doesn't exist until July, but wouldn't you want to be working with somebody that's ahead of the curve and is going to get you that transparency and clarity beforehand? Right? That's the way I want to be. I want to feel excited about getting those conversations, and not saying I'm kicking the can down the road until it's forced upon me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make us all a little bit better. I want to make us all excited about, being a first implementer, because I think that adds value. You all have choices. You don't have to be on this call on a Friday morning. You all have a lot of experience, a lot of success. I'm excited to address the questions and concerns from customers. And I'm also okay with somebody who says, well, Jeff, I don't want to do that. I want you to take whatever the seller pays. Right. And, I guess that's a business decision that everybody needs to make. but at least it's clear, right? You know what the expectation is. There's no conflict down the road because everything's spelled out.
If signing that buyer's broker's agreement, you have to negotiate your fees when you sign that agreement. Because if, like we were talking about this yesterday in the class, if you have an agreement with the buyer to pay you a fee of say 2.5%, and the seller is only offering 1%, you're covered by the buyer paying you that 2.5%. You don't have to accept that 1%, or if you do, does that 1% go to the buyer, or does that go bye-bye, or how does that work?
Wait, so if you negotiate at 2 and there's a 3 coming in,
Let's say you got 2.5% from the buyer. The buyer's going to pay you 2.5%. But now the buyer wants to make an offer on the property. Call the listing agent. Listing agent says, I'm going to pay you, the seller's going to pay you 2%. So now we use our compensation form, which is our commission compensation form, and we send that in with the offer. So, but you already have an agreement with the buyer to pay you 2.5%. So now you can't get both. It's got to be one or the other, correct?
you can't get paid by both, you're asking?
Yes.
So in New Jersey, I'm more familiar with the requirement of how you can't get paid by 2 parties. So I would imagine that we would say, hey, you know what? We're going to pay you an extra 0.5%, and you're going to pay the entire 2.5 or 3% to the buyer's agent. Okay, I'm confident we're going to be able to work through those issues. It's the form over the substance, right?
Gonna get crazy out there.
Yeah, Ron, I believe that if your agreement says 2.5% and the seller's offering 3, you can only collect the 2.5. You
That's what
can't
I
collect
thought
from
too.
both.
That's
Wait,
what I thought too.
wait. So Colleen, if the agreement says 2.5 and the seller's paying 2, you're
Then
saying that
you can then you can collect the 0.5 point from your buyer.
But you're saying that if you have negotiated 2.5% from the buyer and the seller's offering 3, that you don't get the 3 that they're offering?
No,
correct?
you'll be stuck with the 2.5.
Yeah. So the extra
You know-
0.5%, the extra 0.5%
I mean, they're
would make
still, they're still hashing out exactly how this is going to be. So, that was one of the things that was said, but I don't believe everything is written in stone yet. I think we're just going to have to wait and see, but I know you will not be able to collect from both parties.
No, you have to take, yeah, you won't be able to collect. But if the seller's offering 2.5% and you got 2% from your buyer, you can take the 2.5 from the seller and just waive your 2% from the buyer. That's what an attorney told me. So that's what I'm going by.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure, and I don't think the
Yeah,
attorney
that's-
knows yet either because it hasn't been ratified. So,
Yeah, I don't know how
we're second
attorneys,
guessing everything.
how
Yeah,
can attorneys be rendering opinions on something that's not decided yet?
yeah.
Exactly. So I think we just have to hold on, Ron, and see how this is gonna how this is gonna come out. But I do think the important thing is for us to start using the buyer's agreement. Again, it's part of our professionalism to be paid for our services.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to convince the buyer, what your services are. We put together a couple of benefits and what we actually do for the buyer, and I sent it to the agents yesterday. That spells out, what our job is, so that when you have a buyer sign that buyer's broker agreement and you ask for your fee up front, or not up front, but if you ask for your fee for your services, they'll agree on it. So you're
Yeah,
gonna
that's a very good idea. We are working on a buyer's presentation, just
exactly.
like a listing presentation.
Uh-huh.
So, we're gonna have that put together for you guys, both New Jersey and Florida.
Yeah, we worked on that this week. We had a class on Tuesday and Thursday,
But-
for
Hey, Rob,
presentation.
for our Cresskill area, you know, I loved your presenter this morning or earlier that talked about role playing, how to really articulate your value when you're trying to negotiate or not even negotiate, but get a buyer's agreement. I'd love to do some of that role playing, and I think that's really important. And I would like to see if we can get that scheduled before, you know, July comes around.
So if we did I would even say like a daily role play, if you want to put in the chat, like what time would be best for everybody if you'd be interested, like would it be 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9:30? Put it in the chat and we'll run a role play session, because we have enough people and we have enough talent. We can put a subject on and we can role play that with our group. I see a 9:30.
Is
9
it
o'clock.
possible to even do a in person?
We could, yeah. 9.
I think that's even more effective.
So we
Yeah,
can
but
do
Florida
we could
people,
we could do both, Mickey.
Okay, great.
But I think if we had an appetite and we had a standing role play on a daily basis, and we had one of our leadership team monitor that role play on a daily basis, it's gonna help us get into the habit of doing these role plays and driving more value.
Absolutely sharpen our skills.
So it looks like 9 o'clock is the time. I would say no later than a week from Monday, we'll have a communication out, might even be sooner, to do some role playing. And Mickey, I hear you for doing it in person as well. If you're on our Florida team, I'm going to send out a communication with some in-person events that we're going to do in this upcoming week. And I hope to be able to serve you and hear what challenges or concerns you have and try to hit them head on. I am
Hey,
not.
Rob. Yeah, I'm
I am
sorry.
not. I am not intimidated by challenges or issues. So I look forward to that.
Hey, Rob, I have a question, very quick one. Do we already have a buyer agreement?
We do. It's in Dotloop.
Oh,
For
it's
New
in
Jer-
the
for New-
original one?
For New Jersey, we do. It's a 5-page buyer agreement. It's through the state of New Jersey.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll check that one out. Thank you.
And perhaps Idona, if you're still on, maybe we can do a 10-minute review of that agreement on the New Jersey meetings, and then in Florida, I think on Wednesday we're going to have a 10 to 11 a Florida only meeting, and we'll cover the status of the buyer agency agreement in Florida and the unique issues we're dealing with there.
yeah, let us know. Sounds
Yeah.
Oh,
good.
that's for sure. We're going to do that, Rob.
So check your email in Florida. I will be sending out before tomorrow morning. It'll be out today, where I'm going to be. If you want to come talk with me, if you want to participate in some of the sessions that I'm going to be doing, I'm here to serve all of you. I get better when you bring challenges and problems. And if something makes you uncomfortable, I want to know about it so I can try to, provide alternatives to serve the customers better.
Sounds great.
All right. So everybody have a great weekend in Florida. I'll be seeing you hopefully at some point next week. And
Great.
Mickey, I hear you about doing something in person in New Jersey. In New Jersey on the 15th of, I think it's the 21st of this month, we have the regional sales rally. So look for that email from Idona or your manager. Thank you, everybody. That's a Remax of New Jersey event for those in Florida who feel left out. It's not something for me. Have a great one, everybody.
Thank you, Rob. Great
Thanks,
session
Rob.
today.